Anchor is a fantastic platform for podcasting. It's so simple. It's remarkable. Even I could do it. And it's free distribution, free recording, easy, simple, elegant to use framework, great tools. If you're going to pick one podcasting forum, platform, it should definitely be Anchor. I highly recommend it. How much will you pay me? It's interesting because consumers are very smart and sophisticated. A lot of people don't give them enough credit. People can tell if something's a good value or not. If it's a good value to them, they'll, spend their hard-earned dollars sometimes for what they want and need. But if it's not, or, every field has a lot of competitors, so if you don't provide good value, somebody else will. There's no field that some fields are more competitive than others, and Peter Thiel says that, a lot of fields are monopolies, and I think that's true to a certain extent. Like in cable, for example, it's kind of regionalized, one major provider, even though there's like some smaller ones. But at the same time, like Dan Sullivan, for example, he says that if you don't set a price that scares you, then, you're doing something wrong. People also associate price with value to a certain extent, that if something is too inexpensive, like a lot of people, they want to compete just on price, but that's kind of a race to the bottom. I would prefer to compete on quality and uniqueness and positioning. And, I know a lot of people, because time is money also, as they say, they'll, it's kind of like a coupon mentality. They'll spend all their time, making a nickel here, making a nickel there. And at the end of the day, they haven't even really covered their expenses. If you make a very small amount of money per day, it's not worth, better to build a skill where you can earn more. Invest some of your time in yourself. Like Tony Robbins and a lot of other people say, the best investments you can make, is in yourself, because if you become more valuable, so it's kind of paradoxical. You have to provide the best value, but you also have to be, at the top of your field, and to be at the top of your field, you have to invest in a lot, in yourself. So it is true that if you don't set a price that kind of scares you, life is short. Like one thing Donald Trump said, and I don't agree with, frankly, a lot of things he says, but one thing he did say that I do agree with is that he said, if you're going to think, you might as well think big. And part of thinking big is not just like living in La La Land, kumbaya. It's like thinking of like an actual plan of how you're going to build the skills to get to, where you want to be, how you're going to learn to provide the value that people want so that you can, get the price that you want. If you deserve it, you'll get it. Because when I say deserve it, in terms of the marketplace. That, if the marketplace, people in the marketplace feel that service or product is worth what you're charging for it. Zig Ziglar famously said, you can get anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. There's a famous saying that you could either build the biggest building in town, or you could, if you want to have the biggest building, or you could just try to tear down everybody else that has a bigger building. And I think that, people that are less successful, they do the latter. They complain about this, complain about that, protest this, protest that. Protest is, sometimes important because you do have to speak truth to power. But if all of your time is spent against things, then I would say, what are you for? I prefer to spend I do, speak up when I think things are unfair, but I spend the most of my time, I try not to do that too much, because you can get locked into that mentality where you just find unfairness everywhere. Better to be like, I forget who said it, it's a very famous saying, but he said, be so good that they can't ignore you. I prefer to spend most of my time on building the biggest building. I would never try to tear anybody else's down. I might speak up if something seems really unfair, it's kind of a balance, because sometimes in life you do have to speak up, but better to spend most of your time just being so good that they can't ignore you. Like we don't live in totally of a meritocracy, but the people that are making a lot of money, I mean, some people are probably, corrupt, but I talked about yesterday that, money, there's a lot of ways to make money, but to keep money, you have to be in alignment. And the first rule of money is that it flows to where it's well treated. Like I said, it's similar to friendship and love. You can't force someone to love you. You can't force someone to be your friend, to want to be your friend. But you can provide a lot of value. You can make people feel good. It's the same thing with money. If there was no market, if one person had all the money, there would be nobody else available that had any money to buy anything. And so you couldn't sell anything. You can only sell if there's buyers, and if there's no money, then there's no buyers. So, when it comes to pricing, spend your time, if you want, building yourself up in a way where you provide greater value to the marketplace. And then, like Dan Sullivan says, if you haven't got to a place where you're able to set a price that scares you, then you still have work to do.